All right, we're going to get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the public information webinar. We are going to be talking about the road to zero waste and the proposed strategies to get Fairfax County to that zero waste mark. I am Melissa Radwan. I go by MRAD. I am a communications support specialist with RS who is helping Fairfax County with these zero waste strategies. I'm going to talk about a couple of housekeeping items. If we go to the next slide. Our webinar is being recorded, so anybody who was not able to watch it live will be able to watch it back. All of the attendees, you are muted. That means we can't see you, but we do want to hear from you. So please use the Q&A button to submit your questions. Now that is different than the chat function. The Q&A allows us to get the questions in a certain order. We can actually see them separate from the chat, and we can make sure we can check them off as we get those asked and answered. So anytime during the webinar, you don't have to wait to the end. Anytime during the webinar, go ahead, click that Q&A button. It should be on your bottom navigation for your Zoom window. And go ahead and submit those questions. I'll be watching those, and at the end, we'll come back and do a Q&A, and I'll help moderate those questions with our speaker, who will go to the next slide. And the star of the show is Matthew Adams. He is a professional engineer and the division director over the Sustainability, Engineering, and Environmental Compliance team within the Solid Waste Management Program as part of the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services in Fairfax County. So that was a whole mouthful. But what he is responsible for is the enforcement of the solid waste section of the county code, the permitting of collectors in the county, and leads the sustainability and outreach team in finding new ways to engage the public about waste diversion alternatives. He is the lead of the 20-year solid waste management planning efforts, which this is part of, this zero waste. So please join me in welcoming Matthew Adams. And Matt, go ahead, take it away.
Well, thank you, Imrad. Thank you for the nice introduction. Thanks everyone for participating today in the webinar. So I wanted to go ahead and get started. So Fairfax County is currently drafting a new solid waste management plan that will guide the county's effort for managing trash and recycling and composting in the future. Our current state of waste management indicates we are doing a good job at recycling and composting at about 44% of the waste generated each year. This makes us a leader in the state of Virginia. That being said, though, there is plenty of room for improvement, right? So Fairfax County is making efforts to move towards a zero waste goal. So that means that we're trying to minimize the amount of waste that we generate as close to zero as possible. And we can do that by, in a lot of different ways, either reducing our waste, reusing and repairing items that we have, donating unwanted items for other, or other utilization of those items, recycling materials, and composting food scraps, yard waste, and other compostables. This is a better alternative to our current method of burning the waste for energy at our waste to energy plant and then landfilling those items in our landfill, right? So why are we moving to zero waste? In September of 2021, the Board of Supervisors came together and approved the Community-Wide Energy and Climate Action Plan. So that's the CCAP plan. That's our CCAP goal, which is to divert 90% of the waste that we generate in the county in any given year from incineration and landfills by 2040. It's a very aspirational goal. It's, 90% diversion would make us a leader in the world for how we do waste diversion. It's, and it's something that, we feel is very important for our community moving forward. The county faces future uncertainty related to the waste disposal and hauling, which will likely have a significant impact on future costs that will be passed down to the consumer. As we continue to generate waste, we'll be running out of space to put it. We'll be running out of places to take it. Our population will continue to increase, which will cause, even more waste to be generated if we don't get out in front and try to be proactive in managing that waste stream. Recycled materials can be utilized in the production of new products, saving energy, water, and other natural resources that would have been utilized in manufacturing products from raw materials. Diverting materials from landfills, especially organic items like food scraps and yard waste, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, which in turn lessen the effects of climate change and that can cause extreme weather events, hotter temperatures, increased droughts, and other health risks. It also provides, an additional resource that we, generate inside of the county now. But when that food waste is composted or that yard waste is composted, it comes back to being a resource, soil that we can put back into the community and that can help, with our environmental quality, with our sustainability, and with our resilience. Zero waste efforts can help keep materials from littering our land and polluting our waterways. Recycling can also save energy, burn less fossil fuels, and reduce air pollution. This is a win for public health. Zero waste initiatives can also help reduce inequities. Food waste reduction and food rescue donation can help address some food insecurities inside of the community. Reducing the amount of waste sent to landfills or incinerators, which are disproportionately located near marginalized communities, can improve public health. Local recycling and composting systems can stimulate and develop a circular economy within, local entrepreneurship, job creation, and it has skill building potential. This helps build even more resiliency in the community and can improve the health and wealth of the community as people get more skills, they have more resources to do some of these items. New types of jobs are created around some of these, waste streams and some of these waste reduction and waste diversion type of technologies. So these are all positive things that are associated to why we're moving to a zero waste goal. Now, so how do we get to zero waste? Here's a graph that kind of breaks down all of the items that we're talking about and kind of gives a quick summary of kind of how much they affect the previous or the other strategies around them. The big takeaway here is that there's no single answer that will get the county to zero waste. We need to implement several of these strategies to incrementally move us towards an improved waste reduction, recycling, and composting materials. These strategies build on one another and strengthen our overall efforts. Some of these strategies are deeply rooted in another strategy. So doing just one or just two will definitely have, will minimize some of our efforts if we don't do a lot of the strategies altogether. But by implementing these strategies in their entirety, the county can achieve a 90% zero waste diversion level. We believe that it is possible. It is doable. It takes the work of an entire community as well as, both state government, local government, residents, and businesses working together to get to a 90% goal. And that's what is outlined in our plan. So right now, I'll go over some of the individual strategies in the following slides. So this is the overall list of the, strategies that we are doing through to get to zero waste. There are several of these strategies, and I'm going to walk through them again one by one to kind of give you an idea of what these things are, what they mean, how much they can help, what we can do to get there, those sort of things. So first out of the gate is one of the important zero waste strategies that we've come up with is to expand the list of recyclables that are currently available in Fairfax County. This matters a lot. Having clear and consistent recycling, literature and understanding in the community makes it a lot easier to know exactly what can be recycled no matter where you are in Fairfax County. You don't need to remember the different recycling rules. You don't have to think about how different cities do it, whether you live outside of the county and work in the county and there's two different rules, or if you or you live here and work somewhere else, we're trying to make a consistent set of rules to make it easier, to minimize the amount of guessing and wish cycling that happens at the curb and at businesses. This also provides for better recycling. With a clear list, you'll have fewer mistakes and be able to recycle more effectively. As more items are added to the list, you'll always know you can recycle across the entire county. Better recycling leads to less litter, cleaner neighborhoods. As we get more recycling and more options to recycle, this helps reduce the amount of litter that we find in neighborhoods to help keep our neighborhoods cleaner and healthier. This also allows us to invest in new facilities and new infrastructure, which will allow for recycling of a broader range of recyclables and help keep markets for those materials. Right now, we have a very limited number of things that can be recycled because we do not have the infrastructure to process those markets. It's harder for us as a county to be able to do that. So if we, invest more in an expanded list of recyclables and more, a larger infrastructure and a more processing power, this allows us to expand that list of recyclables so that we can get a larger piece of those recyclables out of the waste stream and find a second use for them or turn them into a more valuable material. A streamlined and expanded recycling system can divert up to 25,000 tons of material from counties' incineration and landfills. We're talking about reducing 23,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere each year. That's 25,000 tons of material. It's a lot of material that we can just target with some, entry-level kind of early changes to how we manage waste today. Another one of our proposed strategies that's very fundamental to what we're trying to do is that we're trying to expand our education, engagement, evaluation, and enforcement efforts inside of the county. So what this will do is we will be able to bring on more staff, we'll be able to bring on more people to be able to, strengthen the impact and the implementation of some of our other strategies. By educating other people in the community, by reaching into the community, meeting people where they are, meeting them how they want to be met in multiple languages and different places, and having them understand how we do business and what the rules are associated to that, previously talked about simplified, list of recyclables, makes it so that people will know more what to do and then be able to participate more. Those individuals that want to do it will be able to do it. Engagement, we're going to expand engagement so it fosters a sense of ownership and a participation within the community. It's encouraging active involvement in the waste diversion efforts and promoting, a culture of sustainability in Fairfax County. Behavioral change is hard. Behavioral change in the community is hard. So to do that, we have to have continuous education and continuous engagement so that we can get a longer lasting behavioral change where we can get reducing waste to become a daily habit as part of just how people think about how they handle their waste, how they purchase their items, how they go through their daily lives, and how that impacts them. It also enhances our program's effectiveness if we begin actively evaluating how we are doing as a program, going out and spending a lot more time seeing in very specific places how things are being managed, how we're going through and improving our programs, putting a lot more metrics and data to what we're doing as a community, and then being transparent with that data and sharing it with the community so that people can see where we are, see what we're doing, see what's happening in the community, and having it, be a part of the solution. And finally, one of the big things we're talking about is expanding enforcement of the new recycling requirements. So that way we would be incentivizing individuals and businesses, encouraging them to do the right things. And for those individuals that, that may not, encourage them, incentivize them through enforcement to follow these new codes. To do that, we're going to need more people. We're going to need more people out in the community enforcing those actions. This is a really big thing. It has a very high potential of diversion. We're talking about 93,000 tons of material a year is the potential of what we can talk about getting out of the waste stream just through education, engagement, evaluation, and enforcement. Next is a thing that's very important. I can't stress this enough. The Unified Sanitation Districts is one of the most important strategies I'm going to talk about today. This strategy is what opens the door for a lot of the opportunities to do some of our other strategies that I've talked about previously, as well as emphasizing and building and stressing the strategies that I talked about previously. So what we're talking about is a unified sanitation district. So right now, Fairfax County is a free market where all the trash haulers can go and residents can bid, or residents can go out to bid from haulers to try to get the best price and competing as an individual. Well, what we're trying to do is to standardize waste service across the entire county so that we would break up the county into into differing size districts to be able to bid those districts out as an entirety so that we're getting the best price as well as a high level of consistent service across the county. So that's one of the benefits to do this. We're looking to get a high level of service across the county, making it easier to understand and to use waste collection services. Plus, the county will make sure that waste collectors are held contractually accountable for missed pickups, compliance issues, and any number of other issues and implementation of programs through a contract as they bid on these items. So we want to make sure that we're always giving the highest quality of service at the lowest price for residents. So to do that, we want to bid these prices out so that everyone in the community, whether your price, your neighbor's price, the guy two guys down the street, everyone's prices are fair and transparent. You can see what those prices are for all of the residents in that sanitation district. Residents will pay the same rate no matter where they live in the county. And they can expect to save, we're expecting to save up to 25% or more on waste collection fees moving to this model through the efficiencies that we pick up by, instead of a hauler coming through a neighborhood or 3 different haulers in a neighborhood, we have one collector that goes through and picks up the houses as opposed to skipping houses or moving through the neighborhood. There's just a lot of efficiencies that can be picked up doing that. And it also, having less trucks in a neighborhood makes them safer. It makes the wear and tear on the roads better. I mean, the roads will last longer. Our maintenance fees for the roads will go down. We will have significantly less impact, and the community will be safer with less larger trucks in smaller neighborhoods. And not only that, there is using those trucks and minimizing those routes and being as efficient as possible allows us to save a substantial amount in greenhouse gas emissions for the community. We're talking about 75,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide is what we're estimating can be reduced from the community moving to a unified sanitation district, moving to that type of model. And the big thing here is that we're estimating that we're going to be saving the residents in their entirety. All the residents will save, if you put everyone's savings together, would be roughly $27 million a year in community savings with that 25% reduction in cost, right? So that's a big deal. One of the other things that we're talking about that goes along with unified sanitation districts is the idea of a pay-as-you-throw system, where individuals in the county will pay based on the amount of trash they throw away. Pay-as-you-throw treats trash kind of like electricity, gas, and other utilities, where households pay a variable rate depending on the amount of the service they use. If you use less of the service for waste, you save money. So what we're talking about, what we're considering, is like a volume-based system where residents in the county will be able to select what size bin they would like to use, whether it's a 35, 65, 95-gallon cart for their waste. So that's not recycling and that's not organics or yard waste. That is just the size cart for waste, things that can't be recycled or they choose not to recycle or divert through the organic stream. And based on the size of that cart is how much an individual will pay. So right now in the system that we have, if I have everyone has a 95-gallon cart. If I only put one bag in it and my neighbor puts 10 bags in his or theirs, we pay the same rate. And that doesn't make sense. So if I got a smaller cart, I would pay less. And that individual who, doesn't utilize our services, that aren't using food waste or recycling, those individuals would pay more. Now, we're talking about it that, organics and recycling would be a flat fee so that, it would incentivize people to reduce the amount of things. The most voluminous stuff in your trash is most likely your recycling. So moving that to a cart so that you have more waste and more space in your waste cart is beneficial to you or beneficial to the residents. The same thing with the weight inside of your waste bin. Food is very heavy. Food waste and yard waste is very heavy. So removing that from the waste stream and putting it in an organics cart could significantly reduce the amount that individuals in the county could have to pay for waste reduction, for the waste disposal. So I kind of talked about it, but fair and equitable pricing for households, again, would be based on the amount that they output. It's fair so that it allows residents to have more control over how much they pay for waste management based on their participation in our programs. So the more you participate, the more you do the things to divert waste to other places, to some of our other programs, is the less you have to pay. It's a win-win for everyone. Let's see here. Environmental benefits. Since pay-as-you-throw encourages more recycling, it can help divert 96,000 tons of waste is what we're estimating can be moved out of landfills, out of our incinerator, and moved into some of these other streams and moved into some of these secondary markets if we have the ability to incentivize people to use them. One of our important strategies is a mandatory organics recycling system. We want to make it so that individuals have a way to be able to dispose of food waste and organics so that we can take that waste stream that makes up about 30% of our total waste is food waste. We want to target that waste to find a second use for it. Organics recycling helps reduce landfill space. It helps reduce the amount of material that gets landfilled. And we end up taking that material and composting it, turning it into compost, so soil that becomes a resource that we can put back into our county gardens. We can put it on projects. You can put it in the soil in some of our harder hit environmental areas, as opposed to doing chemical fertilizers. And it also lowers our emissions. The more waste that gets thrown, food waste that gets thrown into a landfill, or they naturally becomes disposed food waste, turns into harmful methane that can be used what happens when food gets decomposes. So it's a no-brainer that we want to be able to provide this service so that individuals can take a potential waste that only has one more use, and then turning it into something really positive, like composting, benefits to the soil, benefits to the environment in its totality. And while reducing 150 tons of organic waste that is thrown away every year. This is waste that is in the trash. It's up to 150,000 tons. It's a huge stream that we can target using this method. So in conjunction with kind of the unified sanitation districts, as well as with our education program, we wanted to specifically call out and expand our commercial and multifamily recycling programs. We want to make sure that everyone in the county has access to recycling, no matter where you live or work or what business you do. We want to make it so that you don't only have to recycle at home. There are options in stores, in apartment buildings, as well as offices. We want to make sure that there is recycling everywhere that we go, so that we can maximize the amount of interactions that residents and people have to be convenient to throw away or to recycle some of the waste that they generate. So again, we want to make sure that you have the ability to recycle anywhere and everywhere inside of Fairfax County, whether you're at home, at work, or at school, at a business. We want to make sure that you have that option everywhere. If moving towards this option, we believe that we will be diverting up to 100,000 tons of material from the county's incineration and landfills, while also improving the neighborhoods so that they generate less litter. We want to make sure that these individuals are educated, that businesses know what they're supposed to do and follow new county rules, as opposed to kind of figuring it out on their own. So we want to make sure that we're targeting and expanding our commercial and multifamily recycling programs. A big thing that I think is very important to the community is we're talking about also a source reduction and zero waste centers. So we want to, invest in the community and, create these convenient disposal options, that make it easy to drop off hard to recycle items all in one place conveniently located throughout the county. This is a place where a community can come together and learn about recycling that's easy and convenient to them, so that they have a place to take these things, and without having to find multiple trips, having to do a lot of research on what to do. It's a one-stop shop for recycling challenging items. This also gives us the opportunity to expand the number of things that we can recycle that typically do not go in your curbside bin. These recycling centers could be made so that it could easily recycle a broader range of materials. This includes, e-waste, the purple bin. We're talking about some of these programs that we're trying to get started. We want to make those broader across the county and more convenient and easy for residents to use, so that way that we can ensure that those items aren't going to a landfill somewhere or aren't being incinerated. And this sort of thing saves money. When you use the reuse or repair services at these centers, potentially you could extend the life of your belongings. You can save from buying new items. And most importantly, it provides a safe place at which for people to dispose of these items. If people don't know what to do with certain items, chemicals, things, when you bring them to a center, it's a lot better than not knowing what to do and putting them in the trash where, potentially they could get out into the environment. We want to make sure that there is a safe place to take these things and a place for people to get educated and for them to understand what these centers do. And finally, what this ends up doing is creating new jobs for the community. It gets people educated on what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to do it, what happens to them when we do recycle, and allows people to really understand and have a focal point for understanding sustainability. There's nothing better than having a solid waste expert in your backyard to be able to tell you what to do or where to go or what happens to it when you turn it in. That's the idea of having a zero waste center, right? So the next big strategy is based around the construction demolition debris. This is a very high impact strategy. Construction demolition debris makes up about 23% of the county's overall waste. This is a big chance to cut down on landfill use. We can potentially divert 61,000 tons of waste per year. By source separating and providing an alternative for people to dispose of this waste, like bricks, concrete, wood, tile, these things that we know that there is a secondary use for, providing a place for them to do that and to process that material makes it easy and makes it significantly more sustainable to target those waste streams and get them out of the way of your normal municipal solid waste. We talk about doing this as one of the potential ideas to be as part of a zero waste center. When you show up and have this waste and don't know what to do with it, what do you do with concrete blocks? What do you do with bricks? You take it to the zero waste center and we have a place that you can dispose of that, where we take it, find a new home for it, process it, and turn it into a raw material to be used for something else. And that's part of that the conservation of natural resources, right? We want to reduce the need for new materials for construction and renovation projects. If those things already exist, there's no sense in getting a new one if we already have material that can be used for these projects. This is the potential to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by about 13,000 metric tons every year. So it's it's not an insignificant number. It's a sizable impact to our community. Finally, one of the last things that we wanted to talk about was Fairfax County is trying to support some of this extended producer responsibility, EPR legislation, as well as new technology. Things like bottle bills, container deposit laws, where a small refundable deposit is added to the price of beverage containers or other items. When a customer returns the empty container to the retailer at a redemption center, they receive their deposit back. This is the cost of the system, is the responsibility of the distributors, right? So we're talking about ways in which to hold the individuals that create the packaging, that create the materials, to be held responsible or have some level of responsibility in their creation, so that incentivizes them to want to make a smaller item, to use less packaging, to use more sustainable materials. Another good example of this, of meaningful EPR or extended producer responsibility, is the plastic bag tax that's currently in Fairfax County, where customers are charged an extra tax, a nickel, to use a one-time item of a plastic bag. That tax money is then gone and it goes back to funding sustainability programming. This is holding not only the producers of the product, but the consumers of the product responsible for the waste that's about to be generated. We want to make sure that people understand that everyone has to work together, whether it's the person making the item, the person that's selling the item, the person that's using the item, and the person that's disposing of the item. Everyone has to work together to make sure that to reach that 90% goal, that everyone has a responsibility to minimize the amount of waste that we generate as a community. So we want to incentivize that. Let's see here. EPR, again, I'll go through it again. EPR shifts the responsibility of post-consumer waste management to material producers and waste generators, leading to better management of end-of-life products. EPR programs encourage producers to design products with their entire life cycle in mind, leading to less waste generated and more efficient use of resources. A big thing about this is that we are stimulating innovation. We want to make sure that producers are incentivized to produce more sustainable products and innovate on what they're doing now to improve on the life cycle of that product over time, and to hold the individuals that consume it also responsible, so that we can minimize and work together to reduce the amount of waste that we are generating. Finally, to do all of these things, and this is a lot of strategies. One of the things that we are talking about and that Fairfax County is considering is the addition of a zero waste fee. So this fee would be a fee that is added on to Fairfax County residents, whether it would be single family, multifamily, or commercial property owners. So that would be set aside to fund some of our zero waste strategies and programs, like building zero waste centers, boosting the community's education and engagement and enforcement, establishing zero waste grants to help incentivize people in the community to start businesses, to start processing, to start some of these waste reduction industries. Also, this money could be used to construct new waste processing facilities. And it also can be used to bring on additional staff, so that we can go out into the community and make sure that individuals understand the message, understand what we're doing, and are participating at the best of their ability. The zero waste fee is designed to be fair, with different costs for everyone. So based on the waste that individuals generate is how much is kind of the idea of what we're trying to base that amount that individuals would pay. So we talked about it in the survey, that there are some options that we're talking about as to how much that zero waste fee could be and how and where it is applied. So just a quick pathway to the plan adoption. This is a quick overview of the timeline for implementation. These proposed strategies are being considered as part of the overall solid waste management plan that is due to our DEQ, which is the Department of Environmental Quality, is due in April of 2025. This is a process we go through every 20 years. So the last time we did this exercise was in 2004. So this time around in 2024, we're going through and getting ready for a resubmission to DEQ in April of 2025. So right now we're in September, which is at the public webinar. We're planning for a public hearing to go in front of the Board of Supervisors for adoption of the plan. So a copy of our plan will be available in likely late December for the public to consume. And then a public hearing will happen at the Board of Supervisors meeting in February of 2025, which it will, we encourage everyone to come out to, give what their thoughts on the public hearing, to let the board know whether they're supported or not, and then inevitably vote on it and approve the plan and have it be ready for submission in 2025. So this is the next step. So the next step, so for anyone on the call that or anyone in the webinar that has not taken the survey, please do. This is the best way at which individuals can have their thoughts heard, can have their opinions, out in the community, so we can start doing this early so I can hear from you. The deadline for the survey is September 30th. It takes about 10-15 minutes to complete. The QR code and the link are both attached. Also, another big thing that individuals can do if they're interested in zero waste or in the next steps or want to hear more about it, or want to know more about recycling education and engagement, you can join our mailing list. The QR code is on the slides as well as a link. In there, we provide consistent messaging about what we're doing, what's recyclable, what's some of the really cool projects that we're working on. A lot of that is in the mailing list. All right. So I've talked for a while. I think we're going to move to questions.
We are, and I must say our audience, they are rock stars, giving us some questions. I will mention there's a couple of folks who have said, I got questions about this, so I have questions about that. Please submit the actual questions into the Q&A, and I will ask them of Matt. We need to know what you want to ask. We can't unmute you. It's not that type of meeting, so use that function to send us your questions. I do want to do a quick shout out to Kendall Jameson, who is in the webinar, who mentioned that their church will start commercial composting in November. They believe that this is part of their creation care. They also believe it is their duty as community members.
Well, so that's fantastic.
Kudos to Kendall and the church. We appreciate those efforts. I'm going to try to group some of these questions together so that way we're kind of answering similar things. And I will also let everybody know we're recording, so there'll be a recording available after probably in a week or so. I think we'll get it posted. We will also share out a copy of the slides, so that will be available on the Engage Fairfax County website. Let's start with pay as you throw. One comment question is, I imagine one challenge will be balancing pay as you throw with wish cycling. For those who don't know what wish cycling is, it's the things that aren't truly recyclable yet. We don't have the technology to recycle them, but we really wish they could be. So we're going to put it into the recycling bin and just hope that somehow it's going to get recycled when maybe it shouldn't be in that bin. So so Matt, you think that might be a challenge with the pay as you throw, maybe getting a little more wish cycling in the mix?
So absolutely. That is something that we're talking about as being, a potential problem for pay as you throw. But if, this is kind of where those other strategies come together. If we move to a unified sanitation district, then, we can empower the collector to leave that recycle. If people are putting the wrong thing in the wrong bin, they can reject that load and leave like a door hanger or leave a sticker or a flyer behind to let them know, hey, we're not saying that you meant to do this, but we're saying that maybe you don't know that, some of those things don't go in there. Maybe that you don't know that that's not a recyclable material. So here, let us educate you on what actually goes in there so that when you take that stuff out and put it in the right bin, when you put it in, your waste bin or put it back where it belongs, then we'll accept that waste. Then we'll accept your recycling. So we want to make sure that we're empowering collectors and our enforcement staff to go out to make sure that individuals are following the rules and doing the things they're supposed to do. So that's one of the things that we're talking about. We want to make sure that individuals in the community aren't wish cycling, and that then to provide a potential source of education, a touch point is to let them know, hey, you might not be doing it right. Here's how to do it better. And if it continues, then we can incentivize differently.
And Matt, even to piggyback on that a little bit, the county is continuously investigating new technologies, new ways of recycling different materials. So who knows what'll happen in a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, because you guys are keeping your finger on the pulse of what is happening in the recycling industry.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to also pay as you throw. We're still on that. How would the pay as you throw collection process apply to businesses? Does it apply, and how would it apply to businesses?
So pay as you throw right now, we're talking about how it applies to single family residents. Commercial would have a separate system, but it's something that we're also considering. The city of New York has a system, the unified sanitation districts, for how they do their commercial. They're rolling it out now so that, businesses that have, say they only use a 95-gallon cart, or they use a giant, a roll off or like a larger size box. Each size, it would be very similar, right? Every time that they go up in size, it just costs more for them to throw that, to dispose of that waste, because we want them to right size the amount of waste they're generating and to use the other options that we have. Whether it's food waste, recycling, we want to incentivize them to use those as opposed to the waste system. So it would be very similar. It's just the size of the carts would be different. Instead of a 35-gallon cart, it would be, like a dumpster. That would be their, based on where they start and what their business is and how much waste they generate.
Wonderful. I'm going to move to let's throw in a organics question. How will you manage the pesticides, chemicals in the yard waste?
So right now, so what ends up happening? So the chemicals and stuff that goes into yard waste, we would, much like we do now for yard waste, we have a pretty strict program about, looking in there to make sure that there is not invasive species. There's not a lot of issues because, we can't have spreading invasive species around, and we don't want pesticides and those sort of things out into the community. So we try to do a very good job of source separating kind of what those things are when it comes to invasive species. But when it comes to yard waste, what ends up happening is that, I guess a good way to put this is that yard waste and compost and food waste, based on what is being generated, goes into different piles, right? So yard waste that has a high likelihood of being contaminated or having some of those potential pesticides on them, we probably move that across to mulch as opposed to being compost for the soil, right? So we're trying to identify what those things are so that we can remove them from the good stuff that we generate for composting, which is kind of like food products, right? So we're trying to think through how to do that.
Thank you for tackling that one.
Yeah.
Next question, you mentioned the expanded list having this unified list where you can recycle the same thing, whether you're at home, you're at work, you're at play within the county. You'd be able to recycle everywhere.
Right.
So would that also include festivals and events that are taking place in the county?
Yeah. So that's actually a really good point, and thank you for bringing that up. Right now, Fairfax County government is we have a couple of contracts and things that we've been using to pilot some like reusable cups, reusable foodware, reusable reusable dishes and plates based on at events. And we see it at I was at Meriwether Post Pavilion the other day for a concert, and they have these reusable cups, reusable foodware dishes to minimize the amount of waste. So Fairfax County is currently piloting something very similar internally for our events. And so for some of our some of the events that we have with the public, and the idea to see how well it works so that inevitably we can start moving other events, to make that a requirement in the community. But so that is something we're considering, and that's something that we're trying right now. It's very cool that you brought that up. But it's not a part of the plan just yet. It's part of that long-term visioning. But that's a really good point and something that we should definitely add.
Probably something that, I mean, you could be encouraged. Whether it's required, it's definitely would be encouraged, and whoever is the organizer of said festivals and events could definitely take on that initiative to have a zero waste event if they chose. So if you're out there hosting events. Somebody snuck in an organics question while I wasn't looking, so we're going to jump back to organics real quick. Please. Will each family have a compost bin? So we talked about the pick your size of the waste bin, the trash bin, but will each family have a compost bin or recycle bin, that sort of thing?
So that's actually so a good question. So that's something that that's kind of why we're having these discussions. We're having these we want to hear from the individuals on the survey, like how much space we want to make sure, we want to be conscious of people's space. So do we want to have 3 bins where it's a waste bin, a recycling bin, and a yard waste / food waste bin? So we put all the yard waste and food waste in the same bin? Or do we want to move to 4 bins where, there's a yard waste bin, a waste bin, a recycling bin, and a small food container bin? So we want to hear from the residents, what's a concern for them? What option do they think is best, that would work best for them? Because we have a couple of options there, and I want to hear from the residents about what works best for them and what they want to do that would make them the most likely to participate in the program. So that there's a couple of options there, and we're considering them all, but we haven't really nailed down a specific strategy yet because we're waiting for the survey results.
So if you haven't taken the survey yet, make sure you get in the link. Maggie, who is in our tech support today, she put the links in the chat as well to make it real easy. If you didn't catch the QR code, you can click on the link. Oh, there she goes again. She got it back in the chat. So go ahead and click on that link, kind of reserve that over on the side, and make sure you take that survey because it's really informative to Fairfax County and how to, what the challenges are, and what type of strategies you all are going to be supporting. Let's think about some of these fees you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And the zero waste centers, like all those things are related. So will the proposed household fee only go to solid waste related items, or will those fees potentially be used on other non-solid waste county programs and activities and whatnot? Is it earmarked for that?
The zero waste fee will only go to zero waste, to recycling, and solid waste management efforts. We don't I'll be honest, that I would like to keep that as much in-house, the solid waste, as possible. So I do not want to share it. So, because there's so much to do, there's so many cool programs to have, that the zero waste fee and any fee associated to solid waste management would go specific to solid waste management programs.
Will there be a fee to drop off items at the zero waste centers? Have you guys gotten that far in the planning to know that element?
So the idea is that the zero waste fee, the fee that all the county residents and businesses and anyone that could potentially use those services, that's what part that would pay for. So the idea is that a lot of the things that would be there would be free. The idea is to make them convenient, cheap, and easy for residents to partake in. So the idea is that those would be free and they would be paid for through the zero waste fund or the zero waste fee um, accordingly.
You had mentioned the plastic bag fee.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple of questions that came in on, do we know how much Fairfax has recovered using that fee? And are there ways to bulk up, like if they take a bunch of plastic bags back to be recycled, is there a way to get a refund on those 5 cent fee or whatever the plastic bag fee is?
Yeah. So I do know that number exists. I'll be honest, I do not have it off the top of my head. I do know that it is rather sizable. I believe it is in the millions of dollars is what has come in since the onset of the plastic bag tax. That's been really good for us to do sustainability programming and to do some of these sustainability projects out in the community. So I do know that it's been successful from a fund generation point of view. I don't know if I would rather people not use the bags at all, but I mean, I think that it has lowered the amount of people that use the bags as well as generated a revenue source. So I don't know how much it is. And what was the follow-up question, Imran? Sorry.
Well,
If we
if
can
you
do it
bring
all
back,
together. Right. So right now, there is not a program to take all of the plastic bags and to give you a refund for them. Though there are places in which at the local grocery store or for places that when you gather those bags, there are recycling programs at most grocery stores that will take those plastic bags and I can tell you where they go. What ends up happening is that a company comes called Trex usually comes and will pick that material up into a factory or plant in Winchester, Virginia, where it is turned into lumber, like a compost lumber program. And they use that to build decks and it turns into a construction material.
it is just amazing what they can turn things into. It went from a plastic bag to your backyard deck. It's
That
amazing.
was pretty cool.
And Katie, who's also supporting us behind the scenes, she just put a link in the chat. So if you're interested in learning more about the plastic bag tax, follow that link that Katie put in. And
Thank you, Katie.
yep. Actually, it looks like it went to hosts and panelists. If we can get that to go to everyone, then that would be great. So just repost that to everyone. Next, there we go. Thanks, Katie. Next question. Oh, we're going back to organics. I think we're just going to keep back and forth. You're triggering people to come up with more questions.
Good.
So it's not just about having enough space for a compost bin, but there's also a bit of an odor that can go with the organics. You're throwing food scraps in with, maybe there's yard waste, whatnot. Especially for homeowners who are required to keep their cans in their garages, maybe an HOA requirement to keep the can in the garage, can't have it exposed. Have we thought that far? Do we have ways to address that issue?
Absolutely. So that's part of kind of what we're talking about is we understand that there is a concern for odor, for other vectors or vermin or smell. There is a concern for this. So a way to combat that is more consistent pickup, right? Either having, we can pick up once a week, we can pick up twice a week, we can pick up, we can, have a smaller bin, or, you can have the ability to put your food waste in a compostable bag, certain compostable bags to help keep the smell down. There's opportunity, and that's something that we're considering. And that's why we want to make sure that it's also in a plastic or inside of a bin is to keep, rats, vermin, and mice from getting to the food waste, right? So we want to make sure that we're protecting it. So that is a concern, and that's something that we're talking about. So it's either we can pick it up more consistently, or we make sure that we have the opportunity that, to close the lid to keep the smell in to the container.
And I think that also addresses another comment that came in with bugs. So it's not only odor, but in vermin and pests. It's you get the creepy crawlies too. So
Right.
yeah, I think you're addressing all of those issues. That it's definitely going to be part of the plan.
Part of the plan. Something we're considering when we know it's an issue, and we know that, there are communities that do this, and we want to mirror kind of what they're doing to minimize the amount of those issues. But so just throwing that out there, we want to make sure that, we're giving residents options and that we're addressing those, and we know it's a concern. So we hear that, and we're working to address it.
Can you explain again about the unified sanitation districts? There's a question about not quite understanding how it's going to reduce the overall pickup, the number of trucks coming down the street, because if they still have to go to all of the houses, but I think it has to do with the number of collection haulers, the different companies that might have to come down the streets. So can you explain that again?
No problem. So an easy way to think about this is that right now in Fairfax County, you just imagine, we'll just do a thought exercise, hypothetical, that you live on a cul-de-sac and there are 5 houses on that cul-de-sac, right? Those 5 houses could all have a different waste collector. So those individuals, that waste collector, one truck can drive down that street, pick up one house one day a week, and then leave. And then that same day, another truck comes up and picks up one house and then leaves. And the same day, a third guy comes and picks up that one house and then leaves. So, and this happens with multiple streams. So not only do they pick up your waste that way, they pick up your recycling that way. They pick up your yard waste that way. Uh, so, so you went from, the opportunity for one truck to go to each house and pick it all up in one day, as opposed to 3 different, 4 different, 5 different trucks driving down one neighborhood to pick up one house individually, and all of the travel time, all the houses they drive past that they don't pick up, is the efficiency that we're talking about gaining.
Wonderful. There was a quick question. If if Charlottesville is considered a unified district, they seem to operate like you're describing. I'm not sure if you know that off the top of your head or not.
I do not know off the top of my head. I do know that, they're Arlington works this way, where they have county collection. We would bid our collection out to, the hauling community because we're so large. But, they have a one hauler group where they go out. Arlington does. And there's some other municipalities, especially like in San Francisco, San Jose, they have a unified sanitation districts where they have one contractor come and pick all their stuff up. But I do not know about Charlottesville.
And say some of the HOAs may, as that neighborhood, that whoever's under the HOA may contract as a whole currently, correct?
Right. So that's actually even a better way to think about it. So instead of so right now, most people in Fairfax County have an HOA, but not most people. A lot of people have an HOA where the HOA negotiates for the price of however many homes, 100 homes, 150 homes, or even down to 15 homes. And that's their negotiating power. And that the collector will come in and pick those up. Fairfax County's talking about, instead of having it be an HOA of 100 homes, having it being an HOA of 10,000 homes, having an HOA of having a collector bid on the size, a significantly larger size, to pick up efficiencies, so that there's not as much travel time, there's not windshield time of driving from place to place. They just go and pick it up until they're full, then move on to the next one.
All right. We have another question about the fees. They want to understand I see. So just clarifying that there are going to be some sort of controls at the county level that prevent those fees from being diverted to other initiatives. So if this zero waste fee comes into play, part of that, I don't know if I want to call it legislation, but the policy itself will delineate how those fees can and cannot be used. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. That is guaranteed. The zero waste fee will be used for zero waste measures and solid waste management. It'll be used inside of the solid waste management specific to it. It's very much like so when you pay your wastewater or when you pay your water bill and there's a wastewater charge as associated to it, that wastewater bill, the water or the what you pay for your wastewater only can be used. Your sewer bill can only be used for wastewater or for sewer assets, activities, capital construction. It only can be used for that. It's very much the same here. This zero waste fee can only be used for solid waste management activities.
And one other question on the fees. How are the average fees per household expected to compare to current household expenditures on solid waste management in the county?
So we're expecting right now that there to be a 20% decrease, roughly about a 20% decrease, well, up to a 20% decrease in the overall cost. So right now, the average person in Fairfax County pays anywhere between, $500 to $600 a year on what they're spending on their waste collection services. So through these efficiencies, we believe that they will pay anywhere. I mean, they'll pay 20% less than that on average.
Okay. How can you implement a mandatory program on HOAs that have covenants that require providing garbage services through the HOA fees?
Right. So that is a concern. So what ends up happening is the county. My understanding is that when this is enacted by the board, the county government supersedes those HOA covenants, and then it becomes that pretty much the county has that authority to do so. That's my understanding. Now, I may have to get more clarification, but that's my understanding. I'm not an attorney.
Okay. Going back to unified sanitation districts, won't you have to contract to several companies for collection? They're not sure if there's just one company that could cover all the homes and all the businesses.
That's very astute. That's actually a good observation. We are imagining that it will be multiple haulers, there will be multiple collectors, not and there right now in Fairfax County, I think there's 24 different collectors that all operate within Fairfax County's borders. But of varying different sizes. There's some large companies, there's some small companies. We think that there's going to be several different vendors bidding on different sanitation districts. And we'd like to, we want to make sure that we give everybody an opportunity to be able to bid on some of these projects. So yeah, that's true. I don't think it'll be one collector. I think it'll be multiple collectors.
And then secondary to that question, same person, you would basically be moving customer service of every homeowner to the county office that would handle any of the calls of pickup problems, any daily issues with collection. Is that correct?
Correct. So those would come to us. So that way that we could contractually, that way when there are issues, then when we go out and, we can investigate, say just for example, there's a missed pickup, your trash was left on a curb. We can go out and send someone out to investigate, see what happened. If there is an issue, where, the waste collector's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're, consistently not picking up your waste, then we can hold them accountable based on the contract for liquidated damages. So then we can incentivize them to do the best job possible.
And we have a commercial business question. Will you be working with restaurants, or how will you work with restaurants and smaller carryout places to encourage and help them to maybe stop using plastic and styrofoam, or is some sort of program to address the various materials?
Right. So again, I mean, a lot of those materials, the way we're thinking about it is that we're incentivizing those restaurants, and we're incentivizing those businesses to use, the more expensive it is to throw away waste for their trash, is the more expensive it is, that's the incentive to shift gears to a more sustainable option, right? If you're paying significantly more for waste than you are for recycling or compost, these businesses should change. They will likely change their business model to include some of these items, because it's more profitable for them to do so. If trash becomes very expensive, and we've given them alternatives, we've given them education about what they're supposed to be doing, we're enforcing some of these rules, enforcing county changes and some of these zero waste initiatives on businesses, then we're incentivizing them to change their business model so that they, change the type of material that they're putting out, using more sustainable options like reusable dishware, reusable cookware, that sort of stuff, so that individuals stop throwing it away.
In addition to that, would you mentioned the expanding the list of recyclable material that's accepted. So some of these may fall into the newly expanded list, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
So there's a two play there, right? Like reducing the use of certain materials that aren't recyclable, but then with the expanded list, some of those may actually be captured and be recycled.
That's true. Good guess.
Awesome. Like that. Ooh, we have some community engagement questions for you, Matt. First up, would the county be willing to have folks come out and talk to HOAs to explain these new strategies and how they are going to be implemented?
Absolutely. I mean, we're always willing to come out once this is approved, or once we understand kind of what we're doing from the board. Once the board has given us direction as to what we are going to do or how we're going to approach the zero waste issue, then that would definitely be part of that engagement process, to go out into the community and to educate as many people and to answer as many questions as humanly possible about what these strategies mean, what the timeline is for them, when we expect these things to change. Like, for example, in a unified sanitation districts, if the board of supervisors voted tomorrow that we were going to move this way, we couldn't do anything for 5 years. Legislatively, by law in Virginia, we cannot change any of the sanitation districts. We cannot move to a unified sanitation district for a minimum of 5 years. So yeah, so we've got 5 years of engagement, education, and outreach to some of these communities to help them better understand what we're trying to do, what it means, and how what's the best thing to do moving forward.
Well, let me double down on that. The idea that there's 5 years before that particular strategy would be implemented. You're not looking at implementing these strategies, next year. Like these are things that are going to be phased in. First, they have to be approved, right? And then they will be phased in. So it's not an immediate, like a light switch isn't going to be turned and everybody's going to go to zero waste. So there's a little bit of there's some lead time in there, let's say.
Right. It's a good point. This is people have to remember that, and everyone needs to remember, this is a 20-year plan. So this is how we get to zero waste by 2040. So, I mean, I'm committed to be along for the ride, but 2040 is a long time. But we plan to take steps along the way to incrementally increase our recycling rate, increase our diversion rate, increase our participation in these programs, and slowly over time, change our habits, change our behavior, and have alternatives to waste diversion.
Another engagement question, could we have tours of the recycling system or facilities in Fairfax County? There appear to be a lot of myths and discouraging info out there. So is there a way for people to see it actually being recycled?
There is a way. We occasionally, we do not own a material recovery facility. Fairfax County does not own it right now. They are privately owned. So we have to work with our partners, our private partners that own these facilities. So there is an opportunity to do so. If you would like to be able to do that, you can contact Fairfax County's trash mail, or contact me or contact someone inside of the webinar, or leave a comment, and we can get in contact with you and try to figure out how's the best way to do that. But remember that it is possible, but we do have to partner with some of our with a private company to do that.
Okay. And I will say there are a lot of comments coming into the question and answers, and we're not going to be able to get to all the comments, but I want to reassure everybody that these comments will go to the county. They will see all of these. Matt is agreeing with me. You might not see him shaking his head yes, but yes, they will see these comments and they will review them. Again, all of this helps to inform them as they develop these plans and consider these strategies, because implementation, it's going to be complex. And so this is very helpful that you're providing this information. So if I don't get to every single one that's listed here, please don't think that we've ignored them. We will be seeing them, and the county will receive all of them. I'm looking for some questions here. Hold on one second. What about this? I think this goes back to the Unified Sanitation District. I think that's our winner on the strategy with most questions. What about trucks that pick up more than one kind of waste, so they don't have to come up multiple times? So there's trucks that have the dividers that they can do recycling and compost, or recycling and trash, or whatever it happens to be the combination.
Right. So there are trucks that exist that do both things, right? You see them, especially I saw one in San Jose that split right down the back, where one side is one thing and one side is another. Honestly, those are actually not very cost efficient, because they have to be custom made to do that, or they're not industry standard. And it actually works a lot better to have to have one larger truck pick up as much as they can, and then move to the next spot, as opposed to having two separate things, so that your trucks will just fill up faster. So then you have to bring another truck out. It's just more efficient and more effective to go out and have a larger size truck to be able to fit as much material in there as possible, so that you only have to show up. You can collect as much waste in the community as possible to reduce windshield or like travel time back and forth, right? Where you're not picking up stuff.
And I also believe they would have to empty the truck at different facilities, depending upon.
That's also a good point. That's more travel time, where there's two different facilities, and it would make it more challenging. That's a good point.
There's a few different comments and a question, so I'm going to try to smush them all together and ask a question. So bear with me, Matt, as I'm trying to compose the question based off of a few. So I think it goes back to the Unified Sanitation Districts with HOAs covenants. The Virginia state law may supersede or doesn't supersede HOA's rules and guidelines. So I think that might be something that needs to be dug into further.
Right. I think that's something we're going to have to dig into further. I mean, that is a really good comment. That is a good question that we need to consider, or that we need to put out information to the community about what that means. It's just, I currently do not have that in front of me.
All right, but we're going to take that information back, and that will definitely be something that will warrant further investigation. Matt, I want to give you an opportunity to address, what's so wrong with the system you have today? Because Fairfax County is doing a really good job, right? You guys are good in the sense of your recycling rate. You are not at the bottom as comparatively to communities across the country, but why do we need to make this effort to go towards more zero waste?
Okay, that's a good question. So right now inside of Fairfax County, we generate about 1.2 million tons of waste a year. That's both recycling and municipal solid waste. So that's the waste that gets burned in our waste to energy plant. So that waste to energy plant, that we're burning it, and it reduces in size. So it goes from 1 million ton, or from 600,000 tons, which is about how much municipal solid waste we generate. It gets burned, and then it turns into ash, and that ash is disposed of our landfill. So we have a landfill, but unfortunately, even though it's at a very reduced size, eventually we're going to run out of space. The more that we are putting into our incinerator, into the incinerator or into our waste to energy plant, we continue to reduce our landfill space, our air, or what they call airspace, our capacity of our landfill. And when that fills up, when our landfill is full, we do not have alternatives, reasonable alternatives to send it to. If you think about it, there are very few privately owned landfills or facilities at which we can take that ash to. And there aren't any properties in Fairfax County. There's no place for us to build a new one. So now we're talking about, instead of the waste to energy plant or ash being disposed of right next door, the closest private owned landfill is 2 hours away, and that's the closest one. So the cost for waste disposal, the cost of managing waste will grow exponentially because we have nowhere else to take it. So we're, from a cost perspective, just from a long-term health of the community, it's going to be very expensive to dispose of this ash or dispose of waste once our landfill is full. So making those initial investments now, they mean a lot, because that extends the life of our facilities. It extends, it's better for our environment. It's more sustainable. It has better, climate, climate change. It battles climate change. These are all benefits to the community, but it's also, in the long term, it gives us resiliency in the future, so that we have a place for our kids to be able to, recycle and be sustainable. It's a solution for the future of our community is what it's really trying to do.
Let me give you another mashup of questions into one question. And this has to do with, how do we know the things are getting recycled? And part of this, it might be like a two-part, that being the main one. How do we know these materials that we're going to put in a recycle bin are actually going to get recycled? And then secondarily, do we have any statistics, or will statistics be available on how much plastic is being recycled within the county, or the various materials that are recycled within the county?
So right now, we know that there is the material that is going into there is a certain amount of material that's going into your curbside recycling or recycling material. There are some things that are going in there that come out as contaminants or residue, right? But a majority of the waste that you put in the curbside bin, we have reached out to our material recovery facilities, to our partners, our private partners, and kind of asked them where this material is going. And I don't have the specifics in front of me, but they absolutely told us that where this stuff is going, what they're using it for. This is information that they brought back to us, right? Because this is a concern, because we know that people, there's a lot of conflicting information about what happens to material once it's put into the recycling bin, right? So we've started asking that question. But remember that these are private industries, right? So we do not, Fairfax County does not own them. We have no regulatory oversight over top of them. We send them our materials, they process them, and then send them off to be recycled, they bale them and send them off to be recycled. As part of our strategies, one of the things that we're talking about is having an expanded list where we invest in infrastructure in our own materials recovery facility. So we develop our own markets so that we know for certain, for sure, and we can put that information up and share it with the community where this stuff is going, how it's being handled, who is it going to, what's it being used for. A good example of this is how we've handled glass, right? Glass historically, I mean, everybody knows glass for the longest time has been put in the curbside recycling bin. I can tell you for a fact that when people put glass in the curbside bin today, that it does not get recycled. It ends up, by the time it gets to the material recovery facility and sorted, it is broken into tiny pieces through the process of, picking it up, putting it in the back of the truck. They crush it then to make more space to fit more stuff on the truck. It gets dumped on the floor where it breaks again, where it's picked up with a loader, where it breaks again. It's put through a bunch of machines where it's broken again to the point where this material turns into sand. And it's not recycled because it's not in individual pieces, and it gets contaminated with all of these other small things that come into the material, dirt, small plastics, lids, all of this stuff gets pushed out as a residual. So the glass never gets recycled. When we separate that material and people participate in the purple bins, I can guarantee you today 100% that anything that goes into that purple bin is sent. We pick it up, put it on, it's all glass. We pick it up, put it in a tractor trailer, and it goes to Pennsylvania, where it is used to make reflective paint for the roads. It's used for the reflection on safety vests. It's put back into glass to make more glass. It 100% is recycled. And that's because we've separated it to make sure that those materials are being recycled and guaranteed.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Speaking of the different types of materials, obviously I can't put my couch or my mattress or my refrigerator in my curbside bin.
Right.
So I believe this is where those zero waste centers come into play. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So there's a couple of options here. So there's a couple of things. Well, we're talking about adding that's called bulk. It's things that doesn't fit in the bin. Adding bulk collection as part of the contract. That's an option that waste collectors will have to come out and pick up bulk. That's an option, but we're not sure if we're going to go that route. We want to make sure that bulk disposal is an option at zero waste centers so that we can sort the waste. So, you bring in a wooden chair. When it goes into the zero waste center, we can go, all right, well, that's wood. So actually put it in the wood pile, right? We want to make sure that we're source separating it, and to make sure that individuals have the ability to be able to dispose of that waste. And there are options for individuals that don't have the ability to bring it to us, you can always call a collection company. There's junk haulers, there's individuals. We don't want to put those guys out of business. So there is an opportunity for there actually to be additional business for people to come and pick up bulk waste. So there's a couple of different options. We're not real set on one of them, but I do know for certain that I want to offer bulk disposal at convenience centers because I think that would be a very meaningful thing for the community to have if they have the ability to bring it to us.
And Matt, one question I think is really important I want to get in before we run out of time today. We're getting close. But will part of the contract with these recycling and waste collectors, will they be required to provide metrics of how much has been collected, what's been recycled? Is that going to be something that the county will require of those service providers?
So what will end up happening is that we'll know exactly, how much waste is generated. Like I won't know to the individual house, right? How much a household generates, but I'll know how much the sanitation district generates. I'll know exactly how much is recycled, because remember, those individuals will have the contract, and they'll know they'll specifically have that contract, and that'll be part of the metrics that are presented as to how much is generated in each area, how much we're recycling, and then depending on what other strategies that we use, we can go through and determine exactly how much is being recycled if we invest in additional MRFs or material recovery facilities, as well as organics facilities, or even CDD facilities. We can get as granular with the detail as we invest in the system.
Gotcha. And I know we only have a few minutes left, and we have a couple more slides that we're going to want to get to. But Matt, do you want to last parting thoughts? And I have a couple more slides on different resources that people can reach. But from your perspective, is there any thought you want to leave people with?
Right. So there's a couple of things that I really want to thank everyone for coming out to the webinar and asking some really good questions. Given the opportunity to talk to some of this stuff, and for individuals that, this is obviously a very important thing that we're moving forward to, and your participation in our programs, participation in some of the things that we're doing, and, spreading the word on that is very important. So I want to thank everyone that showed up and that came to the webinar today. And the parting thing that I want to leave with is that, the idea for the solid waste management plan is that we are investing in the future of our community, right? We want to make sure that we have a long-term strategy for minimizing waste in the community. And it's going to take a partnership between state, local, and the residents all working together. Because, if it were cheap, easy, or convenient, we would have already done it. So we want to work together moving forward to be able to try to tackle this monumental task and to reach that 90% diversion goal, because it's good for the environment, it's good for the organization, and it's good for the community.
Well, I want to thank you, Matt, for giving us a great overview of these proposed strategies. If we could advance the slide one, I want to remind people that there's still time to take the survey. The deadline is September 30th, so the end of this month. If you haven't had a chance to take it, it takes about 10-15 minutes to complete the survey. I know you can't click on the link on your screen. You can scan the QR code on your screen and take it right there on your phone. Or, like we said, we're going to be sharing out the slides that'll have the link. You can go to the county website. You can go to the Engage Fairfax County website. Or you can click on the link that Maggie just put in the chat and go to take that survey. I also highly, highly encourage you join the mailing list. You've taken the time to be here today to listen to these proposed strategies. So keep getting informed. The mailing list, they will give you updates on different activities, best practices. They'll give you updates on the Board of Supervisors as they have the public hearing and the approval process. So please join the mailing list, keep informed. More information is going to be coming out as the plan evolves. And if we go to the next slide, again, these are all different links that are existing resources for you right now. There's the recycling and trash webpage, and I believe Maggie is a rock star. They're in the chat as well. So you can, the recycling and trash webpage, Fairfax Recycles newsletter webpage, the Engage Fairfax County webpage, and then there's that trash mail at which I love that email address, trashmail at fairfaxcounty.gov. That gives you a chance if you have additional questions or the current services that you have a resource for your ideas and your questions. I believe our last slide is the thank you slide. And again, the recording of this webinar and the slide deck are going to be on that engage.fairfaxcounty.gov. You might want to bookmark that in your laptop or in your cell phone so that you can go back there and get additional information, sign up for the newsletter, take the survey, all sorts of good stuff. I thank you for sticking around with us for an hour and a half. It has been very informational. Hopefully you found it informational as well. Stay tuned for more stuff coming out of Fairfax County. But for now, I bid you a good night. Be safe, be happy, and we'll talk more soon.